Hello, we're here. Day one of Made to Thrive. I am so happy that we're here having this conversation, this critical conversation, if you ask me. I am just trying to make adjustments to my audio input. I hope you can hear me now. I didn't realize that the mic wasn't actually connected, but I think we're good now. We're here. I first want to just celebrate that we're having this conversation. Beautiful. Glad you could hear me. I first just want to celebrate that we're having this conversation because I think this isn't an easy one. This is not an easy moment where you're like, gosh, am I burnt out? Is this burnout? Am I burnt out again? Is this something that I'm going to have to continue dealing with? Like, can I be over this by now? And I think for those of us who have struggled with burnout, it can also feel a little bit like a personal failure, maybe a lot like a personal failure. And my hope is that in this conversation, we alleviate that. This is like a moment of spontaneous liberation. You actually learn what is at the root of burnout, and you get to free yourself from the bondage of all of the self blame, all of the guilt, all of the shame, all of the regret that you've been carrying around, right? And that is an exceptional, exquisite kind of freedom. And it is available for you here as you're listening to this, when you come to the replay, right? That level of freedom is available and you will leave with it. And so that's really beautiful. I'm so glad you're here, that you're giving yourself this gift. That alone, that level of liberation and personal freedom, what is that even worth? Easily a couple $1,000s worth of therapy, for sure. Or is that just what I spent trying to solve this, right? Lots of money. And so just to have this ability to see that it's not a personal failing and that you don't have to continue blaming yourself and being so hard on yourself, that alone is priceless. But we're not going to stop there. We're not going to stop there. We're also going to discuss why it happens in the first place, right? So, really looking at not just this process known as adaptation, but also looking at the origin of where did this really start? And that also will give you so much freedom. We're going to also look at a little bit of an opportunity to forgive ourselves because a lot of us, when we get to this place where we know burnout is something that we want to solve, we realize we're carrying too much stress, we know that it's affecting us. That moment of recognition where we realize that it's either affecting our physical well-being, our mental well-being, emotional, spiritual, relational, right? Now it's showing up in the home, it's showing up in my personal relationships, it's affecting the people that I love the most. That is, I think, the greatest insult for so many of us is we become so willing to sacrifice ourselves and devote ourselves and be so disciplined in the pursuit of some really big dreams, right? Some really big ambitions. Like, I know you're filling really big shoes. And the ambition piece of you isn't going to diminish. And what ends up happening is we get ourselves caught into just, it's like a paradigm, right? We get ourselves caught in a paradigm where we build on a certain level of stress as motivation, right? To achieve these big ambitions of ours. And then all of a sudden, this level of stress that used to be a really big motivator becomes this like massive manipulator, right? And suddenly we see it showing up in our homes and we're like, oh my gosh, now it kind of feels like the train has left the station, right? The train has left the station. I am no longer in control of this thing, and I'm no longer in control of myself. I'm saying things I don't want to say. I'm reacting in ways I don't want to react. I am not present for these beautiful babies of mine or these children, whatever age they are. Like, show me you have a toddler at your desk without showing me you have a toddler at your desk. And so we have big ambitions, but we also have really big hearts. And we did not know along the way that part of the way that we were operating meant that we would sacrifice what means the most to us in the pursuit of our ambition. And I'm here to tell you that it's optional. And that is like such the good news. But before we can get to that optional piece, before we can get to the solution piece, which is all about day 2, so be sure to tune in and come back, because solutions is where the good, that's the juice, right? But there is an opportunity for forgiveness. There is a massive opportunity here today for freedom and forgiveness. Give yourself the gift of both. I want you right now to just connect to this intention for yourself, for this time that we're together, that you're going to be open to hearing the message that allows you a taste of freedom and the gift of forgiveness for yourself. For yourself. Because what you're about to hear today, what you're about to understand, can radically shift the way that you understand yourself and the way that you proceed going forward. So that's big stuff. And we're going to leave here with forward momentum that's going to carry us through day 2 and into day 3. Okay? Today is all about like burnout is not the problem you think it is. And I think that's a little edgy because some people, it's like, what do you mean? Like burnout isn't a problem, or it's a bigger problem, or it's not a problem? What do you mean, Dr. Tami? What exactly are you saying here? And it's kind of like all of the above, right? The biggest, I think, message here is that you are not the problem that you think that you are. And burnout is not the problem that you think that it is, because we so often think that burnout is a mindset problem or a resilience problem, which is why we think it's a personal failing. That mindset shift alone, when you can recognize that you're not the problem, that your mindset is not a problem, right? Mindset has been your greatest asset in your life. Like, how far have you gotten? Because you have directed your mind to something that you wanted, and you marched yourself step by step, no matter how long it took, to get to where you really want to be. Your mindset has been your greatest asset, hands down. And there's this really interesting thing that takes place. When the mindset work takes so much more effort and yields diminishing rewards, and we have this really long history of that strategy working, we don't question the strategy, we question ourselves. And this is what's so fascinating about the phenomenon of burnout, is that the strategies that used to work don't work anymore, and we don't know why. And so we make ourselves the problem. It has to be that I am somehow broken or flawed, or like I am the one messing this up, right? And so we're all in good company here. This is part of the human, that is a natural human reaction, right? That makes so much sense that you would feel that way. And at the end of today, you're going to know that that's optional. And that is like incredibly relieving. By the time you get to this place where you're even entertaining, like, is burnout the problem? What is the problem if it's not burnout? If it's not my mindset and it's not resilience? I want to speak to that a little bit, to that resilience piece, because the high capacity people that burn out, your battery pack is so huge. Like, you are among the most resilient humans that exist on the planet. Okay. And so there's this combination of thinking on one hand, maybe resilience is my problem, like kind of entertaining that for a second. And again, assigning self blame or some sort of weakness or some sort of flaw within you. Or there's this like other camp that just immediately gives resilience train. Like, have you been offered resilience training? Did you roll your eyes? And how many times did you roll your eyes when you got that invitation? Because there was such a deep knowing within you that you do not have a resilience problem, right? You were like, if you knew what I've been through in this life, if you knew the resilience, the fortitude, the dedication, the perseverance that it has taken me to get here, you would not be offering me resilience training, right? So we're clear. This is not a mindset problem. This is not a resilience problem. So what is it? What is it if it's not those things? And if I'm not the problem? Like let's just listen to Dr. Tami for a second and let's just accept the fact that it's not a mindset problem. It is not a resilience problem. And it's not a personal failing. So what the heck is it? I'm here to tell you that it actually runs deeper than any of those things. And it's fundamental to all of those things because it's related, but not, those things aren't at cause, right? So the underlying problem, and you've probably heard nervous system talk before, it seems to have gained a lot of popularity recently. I feel like a lot of people are starting to talk about it, which I actually think is a really good thing. It also is really helpful if we actually know about the nervous system. We know how it works. We know its origins. We have an appreciation for how to directly modify it. Those are all really helpful things. And so the nervous system state determines how much resilience capacity you have and what level of mind you have access to. Okay, so that's like clue number one. Right now, the reason why it might be feeling so much work, right? Like the same day that you live today that you were living, let's say 5 years ago, 10 years ago. The reason why today it might feel like it takes so much more out of you than it ever has before, right? Is largely, oftentimes, mostly because you are operating at a level of the nervous system that is in a high stressed state. It's highly stressed. Imagine, we're going to use this analogy possibly later as well, but what's coming to my mind right now is, have you ever like tuned a guitar, right? You're like, you're twisting the knobs, you're playing with the note, you're like just trying to get the right resonance, right? You're gonna pluck the thread and you are listening for the right note. Okay. And think of it this way, that over time, as stress is accumulating, it's like we just keep tightening the knob. That thread becomes pulled even tighter and tighter and tighter. It's stretched even more thin, right? Nothing has changed in the composition of this thread. The thread is the same, has the same core components, the same atoms, the same molecules, the same, right? Has the same core components. But now it is stressed, highly stressed. And you go to touch it with the same finger And the resulting sound is very different, right? What comes back is a response to the stress that the system is under. This very much relates to how like the parallels here are. There's actually several. This was a really good analogy. I just came up with it right now. I was going to give a different one. I was going to give a different car analogy, but this one might actually be even better. So our nervous system is so like that, and us as a whole system, that when we're wound more and more tightly, as the stress accumulates, as it doesn't discharge, and it just stacks, right? The stress is just stacking on itself and increasing the total amount of pressure and tension within us. It would make sense that the same question, the same problems, the same challenges, the same workload, the same people, the same emails, the same work could feel like way too intense. And what it gets from you, how you meet it then, is incredibly vastly different, because now there is so much stress in the system. Is this landing? Does this feel like, okay, this is making sense? Can you drop me like a 1 in the chat if it's making sense, if it lands, or if it feels like if it feels fuzzy, like it doesn't make sense, drop me a 5. So I know how this is landing. The other piece where I think this analogy is so helpful is the nervous system itself, right? When we think about the nervous system itself, beautiful. Okay, I'm so happy to see that this is landing. Yay. Okay, we're seeing ones. I love the ones. If you have a 5, it's okay. Stick with me. So the other parallel to this analogy is attunement. Attunement. There's a really interesting thing that happens, that if you attune the strings of one guitar and you start playing them, it can naturally attune adjacent instruments of the same type. It's really interesting. This is known as resonant frequency. The other thing that's really interesting about nervous systems is they are attuned, just like the strings of this guitar that we're talking about. And the greatest period of attunement is from the time that the nervous system is being built in utero up until around the age of 7 or 8. Okay. And that's when the brain stops being predominantly in a theta brainwave state and moves into beta. While we're in a theta brainwave state, which is really from the time that we're born till we're around like 7 or 8 years old, we're very programmable, right? We don't actually take ownership of our own minds, of our own nervous systems, until actually we near like 23 to 25 years old. And this is like, we are the only mammal to have such a long period of entering adulthood. No other this is profoundly long period of time. And one could say, when you start reading more on this research, one could say that the nervous system isn't just attuned in its early years, that it's constantly being attuned based on its environment, right? So for many of us, the nervous system, I want you to think back for a moment. I want you to think back to what was the stress level of your home when you were born, right? I mean, a lot of us don't know, right? Because we're not fully conscious then. But you've maybe heard stories of your parents talking about what life was like when you were first born. You maybe have seen pictures of what their life was like before you came into the picture. And maybe you've seen pictures of your childhood as you're growing up. Those are always a little hilarious. And you can appreciate the baseline nervous system state of the people closest to you. For those of us that experience burnout, for us high capacity people that end up experiencing burnout, the large majority of us experienced very stressful childhoods. And the nervous system became attuned to a stressful state. Attunement becomes the baseline. Attunement becomes the baseline. So the reason why this matters is because once the nervous system is attuned to a certain state, it does what it does. And the nervous system is the thing that makes the mind body connection. It's literally the connection, right? Your nervous system, it doesn't just originate in the brain or the spinal cord, it spreads out to it's the most intricate, wildly, vastly expansive piece of, and it's electricity, right? It's an electrical current pulsing through your body constantly, right? We don't even think about this. It is constantly sending signals, informing the cells on how to behave. And now what we know is that the nervous system, the communication between the brain and the nervous system is 80% bidirectional. Okay. Your nervous system state literally determines how your brain functions, what level of thought you have access to. Now, this is getting interesting. Imagine what you've been able to do with your life from the stress state, and imagine what it is that over time stress has been accumulating, right? On top of this already stressed nervous system. And at no point has there been any real intervention. There's been no real optimization of the nervous system. You might feel good. This is why you feel good when you get a massage, when you go on retreat, when you do the meditation, when you do, like, this is why you feel good when you do it. And that's also why when you come home, you're like, WTF, why do I feel like I never even did that? Because your nervous system is attuned to a certain level of stress. And so you can experience periods of relief, but until you go to the level of the nervous system and shift the attunement, literally move your baseline, which you have the capacity to do. This is the good news. This is the really good news. Until you do that, you actually lose the capacity to be self-directed. You actually lose the capacity to choose your thoughts on purpose, to shift emotional states with intention, to actually show up with your full peace and presence and patience for the people that you love the most. And so for many of us, that piece of like, I come home at the end of the day and I've spent all of the kindness and the patience and the compassion that I have available, I actually spent it at work today. And you come home and there's nothing left for the people that you live with. There's nothing left for you. There's nothing left inside your home of you. There's almost nothing left inside of you of you. Now, this is the point that is so important for you to hear. You're not doing it wrong. You're not doing it wrong. You've never been shown how to actually resource yourself. You've never actually fully understood the science behind why this phenomenon takes place. And you've certainly never been given the opportunity until now to start choosing something different for yourself. Because you cannot think your way out of a nervous system state. And the thing that really has created the most angst here is that you've been trying to start thinking positively. I just want to chill out. I just want to be present. I just want to be good to these kids. And you have these, oh, your heart is so big. Your heart is so big. And your North Star is so bright. You don't need a new North Star. You just are in a state where stress has actually disconnected you from the wisdom of your heart. And you're in a state where that nervous system has stressed you to the point where you're actually living from the most primitive region of your brain. You're not living in the prefrontal cortex. You're not able to change your thoughts on demand. You're not actually even able to think the positive thoughts that you so desperately want to think. Not because you're flawed, not because you're broken, because you're asking yourself to do something that is neurobiologically impossible to do. And it didn't start with you. It didn't start with you. I really want that message to land like deeply in your hearts. The burnout that you're experiencing right now, it didn't start with you. And it didn't even start with your parents. Like, let's be honest. This pattern of very stressful living has been in the lineage for a very long time, like forever. And now, as there's a really interesting thing happening in at the level of mass consciousness, at the level of personal liberation, like there are so many converging forces. We live now in a constant news cycle. We live now in truly, one could say that we are a global community. And so the access to stressful information is exceedingly high. It's exceedingly high. And many could say that our political systems, our educational systems, our financial systems have been operating on faulty foundation, have all been operating from this survival state. And I think there is a great awakening happening. There is a great moment of massive liberation taking place. And that means these systems that were born in survival are going to have to shift into thriving. And what kind of advantage do you have when you know how to do that for yourself? You've been functioning beautifully well. Like on paper, you know it. Your life, you are a rock star. You are a champ. Look at all the things you're managing. The cost internally is exceedingly high, and you know it, right? Like you know it. You know it. You don't need me to tell you. You know it. And so it's actually more important for you now to take yourself off the hook, to recognize that it's not killing your ambition that's going to allow everything to change. In fact, once you've reached burnout, you're past the tipping point. You're past the tipping point. You now need direct nervous system rebalancing, recalibration, repatterning, right? In order for you to feel like you are fulfilling anything that's within your heart, any ambitions that you really want, right? So I tried to kill my ambition on my journey to recover from burnout. And that was not successful, right? It's very difficult to kill ambition. And so I recommend that we don't go that avenue. It doesn't feel good. And I've gone through the phase where I reduced my workload. That's one strategy. Some people do really well there, but a big, ambitious heart can't stay there for very long, right? You don't have to move and become a monk. You don't have to become a vegetarian. You don't have to, let's think of all the things that I've played with that were not successful, right? You don't have to meditate for weeks on end and go on retreats every few months. You don't have to do any of that unless you like doing that. Do those things if you like doing those things. But what this 3-day masterclass series seeks to give you is real solutions to a problem that's much deeper than you probably ever imagined. And to give you a thread of understanding for yourself, like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense, right? It makes so much sense that if I'm under this much pressure and somebody comes up to me, the same person that could have come up to me last year, 3 years ago, right? Say the same, it could have said the same exact thing to me. My reaction this time is just like so out of character. It makes sense now, right? Like the string is attuned, is just stressed, is just attuned too tightly. It is wound too tightly. And I think burnout actually, when we understand it in this context, it actually becomes the great awakening. Because the invitation here is not just that we rebalance the nervous system and we do this restoration work, right? I like to call it restoration work because we are restoring ourselves to wholeness, right? This is whole system upgrading, whole system upgrading. And the benefit of that is that we become more whole and we get to look back at the journey that got us here and we get to start reclaiming the pieces of ourselves that we became willing to sacrifice along the way that we didn't know were actually optional, right? Like you get to have your ambition and you get to have your inspiration and you get to be deeply, if motivation works for you, that's great. I do well more with what am I inspired, right? I've surrendered discipline and I am in the act now of devotion. I've sort of surrendered motivation because inspiration is so much more alive and my nervous system likes it, right? My nervous system likes it. My nervous system loves devotion. It responds really well to aspiration, inspiration. And so there's this entire rearrangement that gets to take place when we start truly understanding that it is the nervous system that is the control and command center of your life, of the way you think, of the way you act, of the way you show up, of the words you speak, of everything that you do. I had a client once who, and I just like absolutely adore this man, and Dr. Thomas Scully. And he had come into my world thinking, like, I'm just an asshole now. Like, he literally was scared that this is just who he had become, right? He's like, such a big hearted human, strained relationships, right? Fear of like, so many of us that come into this work, we're scared that like, oh my gosh, if I don't get this figured out, I'm going to be alone forever. I'm going to end up in divorce. I'm going to be alienated from my children. I am not showing up the way that I want to. And when that goes on long enough, when we're in a stress state, it affects our mood, right? We all have had that. And then after a mood, if you don't shift out of a mood for a while, it becomes like your new state of being, right? And then before you know it, it was just a mood. Now it's kind of like my steady state. And then all of a sudden it starts changing my personality. Do you have this happen? Okay, Tom was there. Dr. Scully was there. And I've been there. I have so been there. I have so been there. And I've been on the other side of it. And I can tell you it's so much better on the other side. But our nervous system state determines our baseline state, determines our mood, determines the tone that we set, and determines our personality. And he was scared that this is just who he had become. And within just a few weeks of doing nervous system work, before you know it, he's getting people stopping him at the hospital saying, like, what's different about you? You seem so happy. Like, what are you doing? Right? And he had this moment where he was like, wow, I had no idea. He's getting people stopping, OR staff stopping him, right? Colleagues, stronger relationship in his home, right? More mutually supportive, loving relationship with his wife, with his children. And at this point, they're grown. They were growing, and you're grown. Never underestimate the influence that you have, and that when you do this, when you do inner work in general, when you do nervous system work, the repercussions of it extend to the point that everybody around you can see it. Everybody around you can see it. They can already see it. How many of us have heard, I'm just like, we don't even have to raise our hands if you don't want to, but how many of us have experienced that you hear people saying, like, you just need to chill out. You just need to relax. I think we just need to slow down. I really think you need to take a break. You're doing too much, right? And because we've heard that so often and we've actually followed that advice, we've tried taking a vacation, we've tried taking a break, we've tried getting a massage, we've tried doing all those things. And then we come back and we're like, yeah, I did it. I did it. I did all the things you prescribed. And I'm still here. I'm still here where everything seems really, really hard. I'm still here where I'm showing up and I'm high performing and I'm functioning at the top of my game, but it is costing me everything that I've got. I'm exhausted at the end of the day. We don't often recognize that whole constellation. The root of that is a neurobiological state. Ah, so good to know. So good to know that it's not that I'm turning into an asshole. It's not that I'm intentionally alienating my whole family. It's not that this has to keep being this damn hard, right? Like, how much longer can this go on? You know, I've asked myself that countless times, countless times. And so I'm really excited that we're spending the next 2 days together after this, because right now what we're able to understand is that what we're in, we interpret our experience as personal failure, right? Or we assume that we're doing life badly, or we make this erroneous assumption that if we just tried harder, it would be better, we would be better. And I can tell you this much right now, none of that is true. None of that is true. And what we often call like some sort of laziness, inconsistency, lack of motivation, lack of kindness, a lack of connection and love is often a system that's under chronic strain. It's not personal failure. It's not a fundamental flaw. I think one of the tricky things is that when we function at a very high capacity for a very long time, and we pay allegiance to productivity, it allows us to swap functioning for thriving. It allows us to start thinking that the depletion is the cost of success. We start bartering, we start making trade-offs. Like, I'm performing really well and I'm this exhausted at the end of the day. And you know what? That's just the way it has to be. And this is the truth of it. high functioning people like you and me, we can only stay in survival mode for so long. And it's already been a long time. And so I remember when I was going through like the peak of my burnout, and I would have these internal conversations with myself. I want to know if you're having one of these with yourself, where it's like, I don't know how much longer I can do this. I really don't know how much longer I can go on like this. Because the toll that it's taking, the level of depletion and exhaustion there's like this little wise voice inside of you that is saying, this is not sustainable. This is dangerous territory. You cannot go on like this. And that little voice is not wrong, but we interpret it as that we have to stop working. We have to stop doing what we're doing. I have to kill my ambition. We're making all like we are interpreting all of the feedback that is coming back to us through the lens of something is wrong with me. And so we're missing all of the solutions that matter. Yes, everything that you're experiencing is feedback. It is sacred feedback. It is part of an exquisitely, divinely designed feedback system. Yes, yes, yes. I will never say no to that. But the way that we interpret that information, that's on us. And the way that the brain interprets information is largely affected by your nervous system state. Do you see how majorly distorted chronic stress affects the way that you see yourself in your life and the solutions that are available? That's really like, I want to make sure that that becomes increasingly clear, right? The brain's job, right, is to filter the massive amount of information, that is coming to us in every second, the brain can't possibly process in real time. It's impossible. It's impossible. Okay. And so there's this part of the brainstem, and wrapped around it is the reticular activating system. I don't want to get too deep into into the science, but I think this is helpful. Okay. The reticular activating system wraps around the root of the brainstem, and this is where all of your senses deposit information, right? All of the information is coming through this reticular activating system, and the reticular activating system determines what makes it to the prefrontal cortex, determines what makes it to the rest of the brain. And 90%, it's actually closer to 99% of all of the information it's over 99% if we count all of the information that's coming in from all of the stimuli. 99% of all information that is coming from the environment to you is filtered through this reticular activating system, which is shaped by your beliefs, your thought patterns, your programming, your nervous system state. Okay? That determines what makes it. So everything that you're interpreting, everything you perceive, everything you process, and how you proceed because of it is actually predicated on your nervous system state. What are we even talking about? How come everybody doesn't know this? The good news is you do. You know this now. And you're the only one that has to know it, because you're the only one that has to live your life, that gets to live your life. So once we start having the full like understanding and appreciation for this, it's like we don't see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. And when I'm really stressed, all I see reflected back to me is confirmation of that. Every interaction I have, even with the people I love the most, when I'm in a stressed state, the only thing I perceive in them, about them, around them is matches my internal bias, my internal conditions. Is that landing? Do you like, yeah? Because there's another opportunity, right? That when we're rebalanced, when we're restored, when we're resilient, like at a nervous system level, at a level of the neurobiology, when I'm optimized, the same circumstances, the same life, the same obstacles, the same challenges, the same children, the same spouse, the same home is radically different because the operating system is optimized. Vastly different life experience, vastly different future possibility with one shift of the internal environment. I am curious. Let's take a little poll. We've got a few minutes here. I am so curious. I am so curious. So there's like this work, it touches on everything, right? It touches on the way that we show up at work. It touches on the way that we show up at our home, in our home. It touches the way that we show up for ourselves, right? And it touches the way that we show up just to life, to all of it, like combined. If you had to pick like one thing. So I want you to drop a one. If the most important thing to you right now is how you get to show up for work, drop a one for the work that you love. Give me a two. If the greatest inspiration, like the thing that drives you the most is like showing up for your family, for your kids, for your home. Give me a three. If what really inspires you is the way that you show up for yourself. You want to feel good about you at the end of the day. Like that's the thing that matters. And then give me a four in the chat. If you're like, no, I want all of it. I want all of it. I can't say that work means more to me than my home. I can't say my home means more to me than me. I can't say that I mean more to me than my work. Like you're at this place where you're like, it's all related, right? So one, if it's that you really want to rock it at work. Number two is like you really want to rock it in your home. Number three is you really want to rock it for you. And number four is I want it all. Yeah, I see it too. I see some twos. Okay. None of it is wrong. None of it is better than the other. Because I think that there's this thing that we start to understand that it is something that we don't just do for us. It's something that's transmitted to the people around us. Like we were talking about that analogy with the guitar strings, that when you start strumming the guitar, it will start like when it's in resonance, it will literally vibrate the strings in an adjacent guitar that match the note. It literally starts vibrating. Isn't that interesting? And what's so incredible about this work is that when we start doing nervous system work, our nervous system stabilizes. We're going to dive really deep into this tomorrow. That nerve, or for the next session, that nervous system stability, that level of nervous system stability actually creates stability in the nervous systems of the people around you. Now, when you piece this together with that little piece of information that I just shared with you about how your nervous system state determines what you perceive in the world, literally determines your interpretation of life, shapes how you process that information, and how you proceed with it. And we're really interested in like the successful thriving of these little beings. You start to realize, oh my gosh, this might be one of the most incredible gifts I can give to the people in my home, is not just that I'm fully present and I'm fully here and I'm in my full personal power to show up the way that I want to, but that my nervous system stability gives them stability in this world at a time when that's probably the only thing that matters. Change is going to be happening at such a rapid clip. Technology is moving so fast. And this isn't something that we have to be worried about. I have a feeling that the future is going to ask us to be more human, to be more ourselves, to be more like this period of conscious leadership is here. And it's a beautiful opportunity for us to step into it. The burnout, your burnout did not start with you, but it gets to end with you. And it doesn't have to be something that your children have to figure out and solve. You get to solve it. I think this is like the most magnificent time to be alive. If you've been in my world for a little while, you've heard me say that before, because I believe it. I believe no generation has had the opportunity to do this kind of work. And I believe it's actually our responsibility in this generation to do this work, because the burden what our kids are going to have to navigate, the kind of world that they're going to have to navigate, this skill set will be mission critical. It will be mission critical. It will be the thing that eventually is taught in all of the school systems. It will be part of basic health education, but we're not there yet. And so we start with us, right? I want to just normalize your experience. I want you to feel seen. I want you to feel relief. I want you to actually feel a thread of hope, because you aren't the problem and there is a solution. And we're going to dive deeper into what those solutions are. And we're going to look closer at how do we actually bring this skill set into our everyday life, and what does sustainable success actually look like? What do I have to give up to get there? And what do I have to start doing to get there? It's going to be a really, really exciting conversation. I'm so happy you're here. We were made to thrive. You were made to thrive. And it's just that we've lived in survival for so long that we've made it our baseline. We've made it our normal way of living. And we've started accepting that this is just the way that it is. And that is possibly the most dangerous place for us to stay. Like that's the place we can't entertain staying. Like, I guess this is just the way I am now. It's not. It's not just the way that you are. Right? It's just the state that your nervous system is in today. So let's keep talking about solutions. Let's keep talking about what sustainable success looks like. I do want to open up an opportunity to field questions. And so maybe we'll do a little bit of that tomorrow. So come with your questions. If this is stirring something within you, jot them down. You're invited to send me an email in case you can't be here tomorrow. And we will definitely get to your questions in the time that we have together tomorrow. And maybe even on Wednesday, we'll have a little extra space to fit in some questions. But this is a big topic. There are so many layers to it, as you can tell. I am deeply passionate about this because I am so over the conversation and the narrative that people that are experiencing burnout are somehow fill in the blank. Weak, can't hang, not good enough, failing, not doing life right, like enough. And it's not even that other people are saying that. That's not even like the injury isn't even that. The injury is that we think that about ourselves. And that's no longer allowed here. We are no longer, if you're in my world, you know this, we are no longer allowed to ask ourselves, what's wrong with me, right? The mind will go search for answers. It'll go to second grade if it has to to find answers to that question. No, the mind is an exquisite tool and we start using it wisely. From now on, the question is, what happened to me? Why am I experiencing this? What is this trying to tell me? What part of this is divine feedback? What part of this is just intelligent information? And that will change your life. Okay, I can't wait to see you tomorrow. Yay, I'm excited for day two too. I will see you then. Have a beautiful day. Bye.